With Seth Rollins, it's always been interesting, right? And I've noticed this. It seems like anytime Seth is losing in his career a lot, the fans support him more and they want him to be put in a position where he's at the top or a world champion. And then when he gets that spot, the fans seem like they turn on him. Only time fans never really turned on Seth when he was world champion was 2015 during his first championship run. But to put in context what I mean more, let's go back to 2019, right? Seth was a babyface, faces Brock at WrestleMania, beats Brock for the Universal Championship. That was dope. Then they paired him up with Becky Lynch, who was the most over superstar, the most over babyface in the WWE around that time frame, right? They were calling Becky Lynch the man. I mean, she was getting like rock star like reactions, right? But pairing Seth up with Becky was not a good idea for Seth Rollins because Becky Lynch was the more favorite and more popular superstar. They literally put out a t-shirt for Seth called The Man's Man, bro. Becky Lynch was the man, and they gave Seth Rollins a t-shirt called The Man's Man. But then the feud with The Fiend really killed his steam as a babyface. The way they structured that and booked that was completely just god-awful. The fans completely turned on Seth, which forced him to turn heel and turn into the Messiah, which was a really good thing for him. Personally, for me, Messiah Seth was my favorite version of Seth. That's when I really feel like he reached a peak of his career that really solidified him at the top as far as, when it comes to character work, promo ability, match quality. Like, I really feel like Seth Rollins had hit that stride. And then he goes from the Messiah to the Visionary, which got Seth even more popular. And I swear to you, in 2021 and 2022, all I heard people say about Seth Rollins was he deserved better, because he was losing a lot of matches and he was losing a lot of his feuds. And in the years 2021 and 2022, here goes Seth Rollins' win and loss record in WWE. So as you can see, the top is 2023. He's had 96 matches, 75 wins, and 20 losses. That's a lot of wins this year for Seth Rollins. Had a great, stride for wins. But then 2022, 122 matches, 46 wins, 75 losses. 53 matches in 2021, 14 wins, 39 losses. So in that 2-year span, he was losing a lot of matches, way more losing than he was winning. And I promise you, all I heard on social media, all I heard fans say was Seth Rollins deserves better. He needs to be put as world champion. He needs to be in a better spot. That's all I heard. So then we fast forward to this year, right? They set up that world championship tournament to crown a world champion on Raw. And the finals was Seth Rollins versus AJ Styles. And going into this match, I think a lot of us expected Seth to win, but there were kind of mixed emotions. Some people felt like AJ deserved it because he hadn't been a world champion in a while. Some people felt like Seth deserved it because he had been putting in all the work all these years. Seth would ultimately win, and I think people were just fine with it. But now let's go through the rest of his runs as champion. I'm only talking about the pay-per-view matches, right? His first 2 big pay-per-view matches were against Finn Balor, Money in the Bank, and SummerSlam. And then he defended the title against Shinsuke Nakamura twice at Payback and Fastlane in the last man standing match. And then at Crown Jewel, he defended the world title against Drew McIntyre. And I feel like majority of the people, probably the same people who rooted for Seth, a couple years ago to be in that spot, were now rooting against him. They were rooting for Finn Balor. They were rooting for Shinsuke Nakamura. They were rooting for Drew McIntyre to win. And I get why. Those people have deserved world title runs on the main roster as well. I mean, Finn Balor was the first ever Universal Champion, got injured, had to relinquish the championship, the next day, and never was put back in that position again to be a world champion. In 2018, Shinsuke Nakamura by far was one of the most over superstars in the company. Wins the 2018 Royal Rumble, goes on to WrestleMania to fight AJ Styles, and lost. And then he turned heel afterwards. And ever since that, Shinsuke Nakamura has lost every world title match he's been in on the main roster. Drew McIntyre did get to win the world title, but when he became WWE champion, it was in front of nobody. The pandemic had happened, so Drew never really got that big moment where he could win the world title in front of an audience to feel the energy. He got robbed of it because the world shut down. So I get why people would want those guys to have their opportunities, but they were literally begging for Seth to be in the position that he's in right now for over 2 years. And then he's finally in the position, and now fans don't want him to be in that position anymore? So it comes to my conclusion, no matter who Seth faces, when he's losing, that's when he has the majority of the fan support because he's losing. They feel like he deserves better than just losing all the matches that he's been losing. But when he wins, and he's finally in a position where he's getting put in the main events and he's the world champion, then fans, they switch up pretty quick. And I get the people they have put him against, also have deserved opportunities, but some of those people's opportunities have passed. Shinsuke Nakamura's opportunity was in 2018, and WWE unfortunately didn't pull the trigger when the time was right. It's past. It's done with. Finn Balor, unfortunately for him, it seems like it's past as well. It's done with. Drew McIntyre is still going to be world champion again. I do believe that. I think he is still going to be the world champion again, even though he did lose to Seth Rollins and he's lost to Roman Reigns stuff. But Drew, I think, is going to get in that position again where he is the world champion. But those other guys, I mean, those guys had their times, and due to booking, they didn't get those opportunities that they should have got then. Those times have passed. And this is why I've always said, and I've said it many times, Seth Rollins is one of those people on the roster who doesn't need to be a champion all the time. He doesn't need to win a lot of matches all the time because he's one of the best wrestlers WWE has. They're always going to have something to do with him on TV. They'll never not involve Seth Rollins in something. He'll always be a part of something on WWE television, whether he's winning or losing. Seth Rollins is in a secured spot. Seth Rollins is a lot like how Shawn Michaels was in the Ruthless Aggression era. Shawn Michaels lost a lot of matches in that era. Lost a lot of WrestleMania matches, lost a lot of feuds, but nobody really cared because he was still Shawn Michaels at the end of the day. You can't touch Shawn Michaels. You can't ruin him. Shawn Michaels is still going to put on better matches than half your roster, whether he's winning or losing. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. He's still going to tell great stories. He's still going to be HBK. That's what Seth Rollins is. If Seth Rollins is winning or losing, it don't matter because he's still going to be Seth Rollins at the end of the day. He's going to be one of the top stars in the company. That's how I've always saw Seth Rollins, because anytime this man gets the world title push and they put him at the top, the fans, they quickly turn on him. Not all the fans, but a lot of those fans, they quickly turn on him. But whenever Seth is losing and he's not the world champion, he's not in that spot, that's when he has the most support. That's when the fans want him to be in that spot. And you know what's crazy? I'm going to be interested to see what they do with Seth's character once he goes up against CM Punk, because it's coming. And the fans are going to side with CM Punk more because he's the more popular superstar. And it don't matter what Seth Rollins says. He could cut the most realest promo ever. He could talk about the animosity he has against him, how he's been there busting his ass, been loyal to WWE while Punk left and was gone for all these years. The fans aren't going to care. This is like John Jones versus Daniel Cormier, if you're a UFC fan. DC was like really the good guy in the story. Didn't do drugs, was the straight family guy, like he was doing all the right things. John Jones was the mess up and kept getting in trouble and all that stuff, but the fans didn't care because they loved John Jones more. John Jones was that guy. CM Punk is that guy. They love him more. And when he goes up against CM Punk face to face, yeah, that full switch of them turning, it's going to be there.